what you got to have to do here is several things. First of all, you got to stop, cease, desist in using and exercising and demonstrating inappropriate behavior. We are always doing that which is wrong, especially against our own people. We love to do things that are wrong against our own people, to make our own people look silly and foolish and stupid and criminal. That's called inappropriate behavior. Inappropriate behavior is what we do that others don't do. That's why they got ahead of us. And so this evening I'm going to talk to you about how we must start exercising appropriate behavior. Appropriate behavior means the first thing you must do is learn how to have a group self-interest. All right. To practice not altruistic behavior that you've been taught and conditioned, to be concerned about all people's welfare, everybody's welfare, to put everybody else's interest before yours. That's what a slave does.
What's up, YouTube family? Welcome back to my space. This is Evans Rayola. Guys, on today's video, we want to talk about the state of Black America, and to speak to us today is Dr. Claud Anderson, who is a prominent scholar, author, and entrepreneur who has consistently delivered powerful messages to Black America about economic empowerment, self-reliance, and group solidarity. His teachings are centered around addressing systemic inequities and building a strong economic base for the Black community. So family, I want you to hear this conversation by Dr. Claud Anderson, as he tries to just explain how systemic racism has been used against Black folks since the early days of the Black history. He tries to debunk how the white supremacists have been using Black folks for the longest time, and he endeavors to empower Black people to come together and try and end this rot. So guys, I want you to hear this video. Once the video is done, we'll get back and do a critical analysis about the same. Let's watch this, guys.
Now, one of the things that they invited me for, they asked me to speak to the issues about confronting Black folk. Where are we today? What's the state of Black America? And let me start off by saying right now, before I get into that, there are three things I'm going to do. One, I'm going to talk about the state of Black America. Two, first I'm going to talk about the state of Fort Lauderdale. Then I'm going to talk about what Black folks should be doing at the end of my remarks. But let me say this to you. I was very disappointed to find out that you all had a major fight going on down here, and that you were fighting before you even get together. One thing my Jewish friends just often remind me of, they said, Dr. Anderson, the biggest difference between you Black folk and Jews, they said, we fight after we get the money. You Black folk always fight before you do anything. And I don't want you doing that. I want you all to come together and play as a team. Why? Because you're facing racism. Now, they told me, they said, Dr. Anderson, you come down here, you got to understand that a lot of people in this area are very upset with your coming down here. They don't want you to come down here. I said, why not? It's because you are a racist. I said, some whites and Blacks say you're a racist. And I said, first of all, I would love to be a racist. Because see, a racist is a power concept. It's a power concept, first of all. It signifies that somebody must have a lot of power. And secondly, it is a group-based concept. You cannot be a racist as an individual, especially a poor individual. And for Dr. Anderson to be a racist, contrary to what you all might have heard, when did Claud Anderson enslave millions of people? Who did I ever enslave? Who have I ever Jim Crow segregated? Who have I ever castrated and lynched? What children have I denied the fruits of an education? When did I deny people a living, a religion, and a chance to marry? When did I deny people have land and resources? If I did none of, they can't show me that, then how in the world can I be a racist? For a very simple reason. Because 99% of the people who make that statement don't know what the hell racism is. That's the problem. They keep confusing racism with personal preferences and getting along with somebody, liking somebody, and loving somebody. That is not racism. And I'm sick and tired of hearing people use the word, well, he's a racist. A black person cannot be a racist any place on this earth.
All right.
You don't own enough power and group wealth to be able to empower, enslave, and deny people resources. So you can't be a racist. And I know good well ain't no racists in Fort Lauderdale. Because you all haven't got a window or something to throw it out of. You don't have enough resources to be a racist. As I hear, you're going to have a conference like this one, where all you're doing is coming together with your own people to talk about problems that are peculiar to you all. And you got all these organizations, particularly white organizations, they're racist. Look at them, they're meeting and getting together, planning, plotting, and scheming. You're supposed to. You're supposed to. Now, they don't go down and criticize the Cubans, the Hispanics, the Asians, the Arabs, the American Indians, and Jews for coming together, their people, and planning and working out their problems. Why is it that they always pick on black folk? Why do they do that? For a number of very particular reasons. That's what we're going to talk about today. They do it for some very particular reasons. They do it, first of all, as I said, out of ignorance, because they don't know what a racist is. They don't know racism never existed on this earth until the 1500s. Prior to that time, people talked about tribalism, not racism. Racism didn't come into existence in public discourse and public debate until the 1500s. They came into existence about 7 to 8 years after Columbus supposedly discovered America. There was no racism when Columbus discovered America. Then all of a sudden things became changed around the world. Because you see, back in 1441, you had a guy named Henry the Navigator that discovered some blacks, 16 blacks living off the coast of Africa. He brought them back to Europe and gave them to the Pope. And the Pope made them as slaves. And they kept them in Pope, that means the Catholic Church kept those blacks, 16 blacks enslaved, and plus the future generations that occurred after that date, kept them in servitude until about 1488. Then 1488, Pope Innocent came out with a public edict that says, this is a good thing, having these kind of people with this dark complexion working for you. He said, so if you want a slave or a servant for life, get yourself some blacks. Now, that was in 1488, somewhere like about 4 years before Columbus, 4 or 6 years before Columbus discovered America. Now, when Columbus discovered America, discovered again, he went back to Europe. He said, I found all this land around the world in the Americas at that time. Oh, wide open, not enough people inhabiting to be able to do anything with it. And they said that, and we are in Europe. We are overrun with crime, food shortages, all kind of diseases. Europe was down the toilet at that particular time. Europe was in a depressed state. They said, you know what? We got an idea. What if we were to go develop that land in the Americas and then use labor, somebody else's labor, to do it? So by 1509, they came with a concept called capitalism. Capitalism says, here's what you do. Instead of using mercantilism, what we've been using all these years, let's go to capitalism. Capitalism means owning and controlling the land, the tools, the resources, and using other people's labor to generate wealth for yourself. That's capitalism. Again, for you who don't miss it, I want you to make sure y'all remember this. Capitalism means owning and controlling the land, the tools, and the resources, and using other people's labor. That concept was fixed. And then they said, now we use these blacks, we can go into America, and we can develop that country. Then that was about about 1509. Then right after that, they came up with a concept called politics. The way politics is played today, based on quid pro quo, something for something. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. One hand takes care of the other. Politics came into existence because of economics. Racism was an economic concept. It says, let's generate economics off the back of black people. And politics then, it came into existence the way it's designed now, to say now, as politicians, it's your responsibility to protect whatever revenue, whatever money, whatever businesses we come up with, is your obligation to protect us. That is the role of politics. Politics makes no decision about a darn thing except to protect the businesses and the wealth of the country. That's what politics is about. If you want to get to a politician, you control the people that got the wealth and the businesses. If I want to know who runs Fort Lauderdale, I'll just find who owns all these big businesses, the malls, the shopping centers, the big tall buildings, the airplanes, the boats, the ships. That's what the wealth is. That's your power, not the politicians. And so at that point, capitalism came into existence. I'm going to jump ahead for a second and come right back. Now, W.B. Du Bois in 1915 defined capitalism. For black folk, it says like owning 3 or 4 ears of corn. You eat, you save, you sell, and you use the seeds for the 4th one for next year's planting. That is capitalism. Eating, saving, selling, and using planting for next year's harvest of manufacturing. Now, in either one of those definitions, did anybody in this auditorium hear me say anything? Did anybody hear me say it? Raise your hand if you did. Did any of y'all hear me say anything about social integration?
No.
Hear me say anything about civil rights or get along with people? That has whether or not you love somebody. That has nothing to do with racism and nothing to do with capitalism. And you live in the capitalistic society. You live in the richest nation on earth, the most capitalist society on earth. So in Fort Lauderdale, what you should be doing is practicing capitalism. Learning how to own and control the land, the tools, the resources, and using other people's labor to generate wealth. That's the issue. Now, going back to the point about racism. So when I come down here to talk to you all, you say, well, Dr. Anderson is a racist. Now, how do I get to be a racist? I don't know, but I'll accept that label. You know, I'll go ahead and take it. But I'm going to make some comments to you today. Because what's happening is that our people bought into that myth. That somehow the social integration and civil rights are going to save us. Those things have nothing in the world to do with the problem you got here. What you got to have to do here is several things. First of all, you got to stop, cease, desist in using and exercising, demonstrating inappropriate behavior. We're always doing that which is wrong, especially against our own people. We love to do things that are wrong against our own people, to make our own people look silly, and foolish, and stupid, and criminal. That's called inappropriate behavior. Inappropriate behavior is what we do that others don't do. That's why they got ahead of us. And so this evening, I'm going to talk to you about how we must start exercising appropriate behavior. Appropriate behavior means the first thing you must do is learn how to have a group self-interest. Right. To practice not altruistic behavior that you've been taught and conditioned, to be concerned about all people's welfare, everybody's welfare, to put everybody else's interest before yours. That's what a slave does. The primary responsibility and the sole purpose of a slave is to put the master's interest before his own. A slave is not supposed to have an interest. And nowadays, in this society, every black I run into wants to put everybody else's interest before black folks' interests. Which means what they put in place for racism way back, you're still a victim of it. And then when you change your behavior, you have to start demonstrating a competitive interest. Racism is a team sport. It's a team sport. It came into existence as a team sport. When 9 European nations, after Columbus, says, we're going to go develop that land. We're going to get into a race to redevelop Europe, to enrich Europe. And we're going to drain the backs of Africa. The slaves would come from Africa. The mineral resources would come from Africa. And they got into a race. A race started with about 9 European nations. The French, the Germans, the English, Arabs, all of them pitched in together to get a contest going. Racism is a contest just like a bicycle race, an automobile race. All those nations were competing. And what they're saying is that he who gets to the finish line first, or get to the Americas first, and develop all those resources in America, and become the most powerful group, they win. All the countries pitched in. Every group pitched in to try to get into this race to develop the Western world. And they said, if we get there, we're going to make sure we use the slaves to do it. Now, when slavery finally ended in 1859, when Charles Darwin came out with what he called the survival of the species and the survival of the strongest, that's when slavery ended. Because prior to that time, you see, slavery was an economic issue. And when slavery ended in 1859, right before the Civil War, the game was over. They took the word race, R-A-C-E, and said, the race is over, no more race. Because right now, we as the dominant groups, white groups, the European whites, we own and control 100% of everything. Black people were the only people who were not permitted to be in the race. And so what they did then, they took the E off of race and stuck ISM on it. ISM is a suffix, which means maintain the prevailing conditions. And so if the dominant European society owns and controls everything, black slaves own nothing, the race is over. And then ISM means and says, don't let anything change. If whites own 99.5% of everything of value, don't let any of it move into the hands of the blacks. That's what racism is. Racism means keep and control all the wealth, resource, and power and privileges in the hands of one group. And so they invite me to come down here. They said, Dr. Anderson, please don't go out there and excite those blacks or they want to go on and control something. We got them locked and boxed, just like they are. They own nothing. They can't get out of the box. We got a social construct. We got them locked. Now, how are you going to tell them to get out of there if we already got them locked? I said, here's what we're going to do. Because you were locked by the Constitution. They crafted the first Constitution. The first United States Constitution was drafted to be an affirmative action plan for whites. That's the first affirmative action plan. I wrote the second one in 1970 for the state of Florida. But the first one was written by the United States Constitution by Thomas Jefferson and Madison. They wrote the affirmative action to give whites privilege, the wealth and power and resources. They control and own everything. So when you hear whites talking about they're against affirmative action, they're not against affirmative action as long as they're benefiting. They're against affirmative action that will redistribute those wealth and resources into your hands. So what you're going to have to start doing, and my point tonight in my speech, you got to start stressing that you are a very unique people. Yeah. Okay? Never in all my years in politics, in national politics, local politics, and going in international situations, I've never heard a black person stand up and stress the uniqueness of black folk. That's right. That's your problem. That's your problem, and you're guilty of it, and I'm guilty of it, and all the blacks in America are guilty of it. That's right. Now, why did I say that? Because you see, the United States, when I was taking trade missions into Venezuela or Colombia, when I would go to Cuba, or I went to Nigeria or Germany, one of the first things they brag about is that the United States is an exceptional nation. They talk about exceptionality. They talk about exceptionality and brag about America being an exceptional nation. And therefore, that they're entitled to special privileges. And you say, what do you mean by exceptional? They said, the United States said, well, because exceptional by definition means something that's unusual, something that's different, something that's been treated different, the uncommon. And see, and black folk have never reversed it. You all must start now, leave here to reversing that cycle. That's right. And say, no. If the United States is a nation and it deserves special privileges when it's with all the other nations in the world. We got the United Nations in New York, and the United States gets special privileges and special recognition and special attention and special treatment because it proclaims itself to be exceptional. Black folk must start this day proclaiming that you are an exceptional group. All right. Now let's go through history to show you what I mean. Every chance you get, you must stress that you are different. There is nobody on this earth. There's nobody on this earth like black Americans. Nobody. There's nobody in the Caribbean islands. There's nobody in Africa like black Americans. You are totally different from all the human beings on the earth. You're the only one. You're the unusual. You don't want to be treated in a certain manner. You deserve respect because of your exceptionality. Let's track through history now. You're the only one, for instance. You were the first people on earth. Now people talk about, well, Dr. Anderson, before you get into that now, we got other groups that are equal to black folk. We got Hispanics, we got Asians, we got Arabs, we got American Indians, we got all these other groups. Are they exception? No. Nobody has been treated like black folk. And therefore, because of the black folk exceptionality, please do not put them in any of these broad, ambiguous categories. I don't want to hear you calling black folk people of color. Diversity, multicultural, minorities. What in the world is a minority? Is that a peg-legged man with one eye? What's a minority? Is that a humpback and a midget? There is no such thing as a minority. And yet my people go around their inappropriate behavior patterns and say, yeah, I'm a minority. And you go look at the dictionary, minority means a loser. Why would my people brag about being a loser? Why would they brag about something they can't define? They don't know what a minority is. They don't know what a minority is. What is a people of color? Everybody has some color. What is multicultural? Multicultural means more than one culture. Well, if I go up down in the street right now, right here in Fort Lauderdale, I'll find Asian restaurant, Thailand restaurant, Vietnamese restaurant, Italian restaurant, German restaurant, French restaurant. I find everything except a black. Why would you talk about multicultural when you're the one not included? Where are your businesses? You can't be for multicultural because you're not included. Well, Dr. Anderson, we're for diversity. Don't you know that diversity came out in 1705? Which means don't ever let black folk get together without putting a few whites among them to monitor, keep them, to watch them, patrol them, and know what they're up to. Why would a black person promote and advocate diversity? Because that was a 1705 law. That's why the whole state of Georgia came into existence, because blacks were escaping from South Carolina and running down into Florida, where you all are. And they want to put up a buffer zone. And so they want to create another colony called Georgia. So that anytime they have a buffer zone, they didn't have any whites. And so the co-op colonies could petition the European nations to clean out their prisons, clean out their hospitals, clean out their mental institutions, insane asylums, pick up all the people in the poorhouse and ship them on boats over in the United States and set up a colony called Georgia. That's why Georgia's so damn weird. You got them all in there. That was to be a buffer for so blacks were running out from escaping from slavery from South Carolina trying to get to Florida. And what they said then in the diversity law of 1705, and again another law in Virginia about 1743, said that for every 4 black slaves you have, you must have at least 1 white to monitor. If you're going to let them go to church, you must have a white sitting there. If they're going to have a school, you must have a white sitting in the classroom. And so blacks are still being monitored under the concept of diversity. But they run out right now and say, we are for diversity, we are for minorities and people of color. Quit, stop, cease, don't do any more inappropriate behavior.
That's right.
You are unique.
Yeah.
There's nobody on earth like you.
Yeah.
That's why I said you were the first people on earth. If you're the first people on earth, you're the only one here. Who else could have been the first? You can't be the second to be first.
Family, Dr. Claud Anderson is amongst the few black Americans, who are trying in a bigger stage to root for black interests. Dr. Claud Anderson has spoken in numerous events trying to empower black folks. Him, George Fraser, Carol Anderson, are some of the people, who are rooting for black people so much in the modern day and time. Look at people like, what's the name of this minister? Minister Louis Farrakhan. He's now aging. Look at Dr. Claud Anderson, Dr. Carol Anderson. All of these people are aging, man. And these are the people who've been advocating for the longest time, for just the... I don't know how to put it. They've been just fighting for black people. They've been fighting for black people for the longest time now. And he starts this conversation by saying, I want black folks to come together and play as a team because we are facing racism. Black folks to come together and play as a team. For somebody to be racist, number one, they must be a group of people. Number two, they must have a lot of power. So Dr. Anderson tries to just try and empower black people and say it's time that we also operate as a group. We cannot defeat racism. We cannot defeat discrimination if we try and operate as individual persons. When we play as a team, when we play as a group, it's easier for us to root for our interests. These are the ideologies that Dr. Claud Anderson is trying to push in the video. He proceeds to say, racism is a power and group concept. It signifies that somebody must have a lot of power, especially in group-based concept. Racism is a power concept and a group concept. It signifies that somebody must have a lot of power, the power that we black folks have never had. Because the white supremacist has made it so tough for us since the days of slavery to now racism. They've always had the power. They've been operating as a group. So Dr. Claud Anderson is trying to tell black folks that it's time that we unify, we operate as a team for us to be able to beat discrimination and racism. He proceeds to say that some people say that he is racist, and they noticed they do not know what racism is. They confuse racism with personal preferences. The one funny thing with a white supremacist, or rather the fear of a white supremacist, is a black person who's vocal. A black person who can order numbers, preach the good news. They're always afraid of that person. That's why they try so hard and play reverse racism and say people like Dr. Claud Anderson who are advocating for the rights of black folks are actually racists. But what they forget is that racism is not just somebody trying to spill the knowledge they have, Racism is a power dynamic. Racism is a group concept. Dr. Claud Anderson is alone trying to advocate for the interest of black people. And that's the biggest fear of the white supremacists. They'll try and put him down, because he speaks for the interest of black people. He speaks for the unity of black folks. And that is something that we must push right now. We saw yesterday the video of Reverend Lorenzo trying to pray, in the inauguration of President Trump. But now there was just a lot of sadness in the process because many of us black people do believe that even after such a powerful prayer, nothing will change. Racism will continue to be perpetuated. Black folks will continue being discriminated, and it just felt so bad. Even after I went and watched that video from several places and I saw black people constantly commenting and saying, this was powerful, but we know this won't change nothing. That is some deep stuff. A black person cannot be a racist. We do not have enough power and group wealth. Racism came to existence about 7 to 8 years after Columbus supposedly discovered America. This is now Dr. Claud Anderson trying to just give us some wisdom on the history of racism in America. Because some of these white supremacists were trying to push for the ideology that Dr. Claud Anderson is a racist, or rather is trying to push racist ideologies against white folks. But that's a lie. So for somebody who did not know, just for Dr. Claud Anderson to put this into context, he tried to give out the history of racism against black folks, history of slavery against black folks, just for us to get context in this video, just for black people to know where we came from, what we went through, and for us to be empowered, moving forward. A black person cannot be racist. We do not have enough power and group wealth. Racism came into existence 7 to 8 years after Columbus supposedly discovered America. Back in 1441, Henry the Navigator, do you know the story of Henry the Navigator, who discovered some blacks, 16 of them living off the coast of Africa, and brought them back to Europe and gave them to the Pope, and they made them slaves in the Catholic Church up to 1488. And the Pope was like, wow, this thing is working. This group of black men and women actually doing a lot of stuff for us. And he actually recommended for other white people to look for black slaves, and put them in their plantations, put them in their homes for them to work for them for free. The Pope went out and announced how it was nice having black slaves, and that was about 4 or 5 years before Columbus actually discovered America. Then now after Columbus discovered America, that's when things went haywire. He went back to Europe, and that time Europe was languishing. They had their own problems, and they thought the only way they'd come from that is by ensuring that they start capitalist ideologies. After Columbus discovered, they came up with capitalism. That was in 1509, where they noticed owning and controlling the land and tools and resources and using other people's labor to generate wealth for themselves. And in this case, these other people that they were using to generate wealth for themselves are black folks. Innocent black people. They sit down in 1509 and think of capitalist ideologies where they have land, tools, and resources, but now they want to make income. They want to make wealth from black slaves. So we must learn how to have a group self-interest, unlike that of the capitalist. Family, it's same that black people, we also have a group self-interest, that benefits us as a people. We do not mean to just have reverse racism or fight back, but now come together, empower each other. Let us have a group self-interest as a people. Just like they had theirs and they used it against us, let us now have our own interest to empower us. Family, it is possible that black folks can just come together, push our own interests, and be able, to be moved from a point of inferiority to a point of power, from a point of lesser beings to a point of people who are respected, because we have come together as a people. We have come together to push our own interests as black folks. Family, I just found this video so empowering, and I thought that I should share with you because Dr. Claud Anderson did so well in this speech, and I commend him and give him all credit for this video. Racism is a team sport. When 9 European nations came together to get a context going to develop resources in America using slaves, they were playing around with us. It's time that we play around with our interests. It's time that we push our own ideologies as a people. It's time that we come together. We should not fight each other, but rather try and empower each other. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Kindly do consider subscribing to this channel for amazing works in regards to black history. Guys, comment down below. Let me know what you think about this teaching by Dr. Claud Anderson. You can as well share this video with your friends and family so that we may be able to push the ideology of black people coming together and just trying to push for our interests, guys. Thank you, and see you all in my next episode. Goodbye for now.